the Oz now, and some people that are saying that we do have to get on with life before COVID and after COVID is the RBA. Delta is no threat to recovery, says the Reserve Bank of Australia today. It's the Governor Philip Lowe says the Delta outbreak will not plunge the nation back into recession as high vaccination rates and easing health restrictions pave the way for an economic bounce back towards the end of the year. This is a good news story, right?
It's a great news story. It's a great news story for confidence of business.
Yeah.
It's certainly a great news story for Josh Frydenberg. It's a great news story for Dominic Perrottet and Tim Pallas in Victoria. Phil Lowe has said all the way along these last 18 months, since March last year, that Australia has recovered better than he expected. He's done a lot of work into global trends around Delta. We will see unemployment rise towards the end of the year, but will only be temporary. And look, anybody who's tried to buy a house, particularly in Western Australia and Sydney and Melbourne, I mean, you wouldn't think there was a lot of economic downturn.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And obviously the Financial Review going pretty heavy on the RBA's predictions tomorrow as well. An interesting splash also on the Oz is Dutton's US missile memo. Peter Dutton has signalled greater access to US missile technology will be key of the ANZ-US alliance ahead of an Australian push for unprecedented defence industry cooperation at high-level talks in Washington. This strikes me as surprising considering we haven't heard a lot from our American friends when it came to getting their spare Pfizer doses. So we're all in when it comes to the military?
We're all in when we come to the military. Look, Northern Territory, Darwin in particular, is pretty much an outpost of US defence. US continues to be our highest source of foreign direct investment. Whilst everyone likes to talk about China buying up Australia, China is way, way down the list. The United States owns more capital, more infrastructure and has more jobs in this country and always has for about the last 40 years. But this is really, I'm going to say, ballsy. The hard man of defence going to America, telling the Americans, you need to give our defence industries access to your supply chain. I think it's great. I think Australia needs a Defence Minister like Peter Dutton. We've never had one before telling the Americans, let us override your trade barriers.
It is really interesting, and it strikes me as I love this great photo on the Oz. A nice day for a psycho in the vineyard. Kind of looks like me after the end of a wine tour, but I guess he's got a bit of Dutton courage. It's a great shot there by Matt Weston. It's fantastic. Also on the Oz, you and I are no strangers to when it comes to GST and iron ore billions. Obviously, we've got Mark McGowan, his first run as Treasurer, coming on Thursday when he hands down the budget. Paul Garvey's got a great yarn tomorrow that could ignite the fact that GST share could be at the front of the queue when it comes to election promises. How do you think that's going to go down?
I think we all know that the federal coalition fixed the GST for Western Australia. It is something that Mark McGowan has been trying to take credit for the last 18 months.
And now Matthias Cormann's out of the picture. He's living it up in Paris.
He can't defend himself. But we certainly know it was the federal coalition who fixed the GST. It's not something that Mark McGowan has engineered. And look, the iron ore price is dropping, Jenna. 9.5% last night, had its all-time 13% drop this year or in 22nd of August. So there might not be too much GST to go round to hang this argument off for too much longer. We might actually have to start talking about proper economic reform for Western Australia and how to diversify industries in conjunction with mining and not hold to this argument that is just parochial posturing.
Yeah, that seems to be quite a political standpoint that they've had for the last couple of months. Given iron ore and the fact that Treasury is always quite conservative when it comes to forward estimates and things like that, we saw it, I think Ben White in his outgoing books last year, it sat at around 66 on average. Do you think that that's where it'll sit again, or do you think it'll bump up considering it's jumped almost $2 over the past 12 months?
Look, I think it will continue to drop, and it's going to continue to drop because China is trying to slow a housing boom in their domestic market, and so they are trying to reduce the amount of steel they're manufacturing because they don't want people to put it into building houses and building apartment stock.
Yeah.
So therefore, their need to buy from Australia is reducing. It's certainly not going to be reducing to the point where we won't see China being a major influence in our economy. But it will continue to fall, and that will expose that governments need economic strategies, particularly here in Western Australia, to diversify economies and provide jobs in other industries.